Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You are on the sidelines with the sideline guys. Today I'm joined once again by my esteemed co-host, my guy that I'm excited to share the mic with because nobody's got the New York accent around my space anymore the way this guy does. My brother in Negroness, my motherfucking Dynasty MMA GOAT. You a hoe. I'm tired of buttering you up. How's it going, Sean? It's good to have you back.
Dude, it's great, man. Going, I know I've said this probably on like two or three straight shows, but now I think we finally made our new homes, and I don't really like this. Oh, it's on this side. This little light thing. I might have to change that, but it's uh, it's good, man. We're further away. I actually have something to get excited about because UFC Atlanta was announced, and now that I'm out here, with Kamaru Usman and Rose Namajunas being announced for those fights, I might have to go down because the tickets are probably going to be cheaper. You might see a whole new UFC version of me, now that I'm out here in ATL.
Wow, yeah, I can't even imagine the thought of you entertaining going to a live event. I feel like it's just not knowing you. Don't get
Nah.
me wrong, this is not a slight at you at all. I just feel like it's not your crowd, bro. But I'm excited. I'm excited to hear the report back. Right, it's gonna be dope. But man, I gotta ask because I don't even know what's the co-main Rose versus who?
Miranda Maverick, I think, if I remember it
Oh
correctly.
yeah, I heard about that. I don't like that
Yes.
fight at all, bro. But
Well, I do. All right. I'm a Rose
you
fan, and I
okay? I'm a
believe
Rose fan
if
too.
I'm there, she'll do it for me.
You know that these people have trained together for the majority of their careers, right?
Yeah. So even more of a reason for Rose to
And
win.
they're still training together.
Not anymore. They're not.
Well, shall see. Because she even said that, like, "Oh, like we're gonna fight and then we're gonna train again." Like, like what the fuck?
Hey, sometimes you got to know when it's gonna happen. It happens to almost all the time. Be the
Mhm.
same camp, but you're in the same division. You're gonna run into each other eventually, and it can't be personal. You just
Yeah.
got to know someone's journey is here. Someone's journey is gonna go through you, and one of you are gonna get stopped by the other one. So it's
Mhm. There's nothing more personal than fighting somebody. So I
I
think,
guess so, but you have to look at it like it's a business at the same end. Like you
yeah.
can't. I don't like when fighters be like, "Nah, that person's in my camp, so I'm gonna sit still." Like, nah,
But let's be
what's
real. If
next?
she's fighting down to this level of competition, there's 100 other people that she could have fought that wasn't her teammate. Like, bro, it's not like she's fighting for the contendership. It's not like she's even necessarily in a position where this is Miranda Maverick's only chance at cracking the top five. Like, bro, there's so many different ways y'all could have played this out. I don't get why they need this, but I guess
I think it's
you need people
definitely,
to show up on the date, right? That's a big part of it.
yeah, I think it's more for Miranda to get into the top five or at least top six ranking. I think they really do believe that she could still be a top six fighter, and I think they still think she gets the hype because she does. She's still a hype fighter. So I think you also got to see if Rose is still legit because if Rose loses this one, you almost look at like maybe getting Rose back to strawweight and maybe trying one final time there because it's like if Rose loses this one, she might even consider retirement herself. So it's like I think it's to push. I always say this to you. It's they always try to find a way to push a veteran out and get new in as much as all the time. And this is one of those where it's kind of like sneaky. You don't even think about it like that. And I think Rose can win and go back into the top five, or she loses and she probably jumps out of the top 10 and could potentially retire.
Damn, I love your breakdown of this because I know how much Rose means to you. And if you guys can't tell, I miss this fucking guy, right? Because I didn't even listen. When we went through all this stuff, I didn't even go through any of the pleasantries, ladies and gentlemen. So why don't you make sure before we go any further that you're following the brand at OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube, and you could also find me at Negron MMA on Twitter and TikTok. Chris Negron underscore on Instagram, so you never miss all the dope shit I produced. Even though I I don't post anything on social anymore, but hey, we're gonna change that next week. How you feeling, Sean? Where can the people find you?
I guess we're in the same boat. So You can find me at bsreports.org. It's definitely a different vibe because I think we're both just been so busy getting acclimated to our new beginnings, I guess we could say. And
Yes, sir.
it takes a lot out of us, and it's hard to go back to the old routine. It takes a minute. So we'll be back. We'll be back in our old usual self where we come and attack each other per fight and per episode, basically. But
Yeah, I'm proud of us. We're pretty tame so far. So
yeah, not bad. It's been a couple weeks since we've done this, so we're keeping the pleasantries here.
yeah.
But yeah, you can find me there, and I'll help you get started if you ever want to get started in the sports writing world.
You heard the man. I'm doubling down. I love everything you're doing there. So make sure you join it if you're interested. But with all of the amazing things out of the way, we are here for an MMA event, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for UFC Kansas City, Fight Night Kansas City, whatever the fuck you want to call it, because at this point, the nomenclature is gone, right? There's no rhyme or reason for what the name of these cards are. Most of the time, it's this Fight Night, the town they're in, or Apex. So there's no real way to figure out what it's supposed to be at this point. UFC Kansas City, Ian Machado, Gary at the top of the bill, going up against Carlos Praches out of the Fighting Nerds. But we gonna get to that one last because, ladies and gentlemen, we got 14 fights to get through before that, an action-packed episode of the show. But I will start briefly by letting you all know that there has been a lead change, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it took me until multiple months into the season, but god damn it, I'm leading the way, ladies and gentlemen. I have brought the lead to 99 wins, 58 losses, and 1 draw for my total season pick'ems, while Sean is sitting at 98 wins, 59 losses, and 1 draw for a differential of one loss each. I'm sitting at 62.97% win percentage. Sean's at 62.34. So god damn it, I'm not a loser anymore, but I'm still losing. Last week was a good week for both of us, but definitely a better week for you. I went 4-2 in Dynasty while you went 6-3. I'm sitting at 43 wins, 35 losses for a win percentage of 55.13, while Sean is sitting at 55 wins, 34 losses for a win percentage of 61.8. But I will say I'm working, right? I'm working. It took me a while to work towards chipping a dent in this, right? But we went ahead in the standings. I'm working. I'm chipping away at this dynasty because you've been on fire this year, but I see big things on the horizon. How about that?
Okay. I think you know what, it's been a while, So I think you had your chance and you didn't squander it. So you got your chance to get back up in the pick'ems. You're up by 1. That could easily change after this week. But you know what? I still like that I am well ahead in the dynasty for right now, and I got to just continue to keep my foot on the tiger's neck, because if I let you breathe for a second, it's going to be brutal. So I have to keep doing what I'm doing, keep picking the right way, and hopefully continue to get dubs.
Hey, you heard the man. Call me El Tigre from now on, ladies and gentlemen. But we move to the first fight, and of course, Sean's favorite fight of the night. We move to the women's bantamweight division, because this fight should be a featherweight fight. If the featherweight division was real, this would be a featherweight fight. But the featherweight division isn't real, Sean. We can agree on this, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, this is a fake fight in a fake weight class. Let me just leave that there. Both of them are going to miss weight. You ready for that? Okay, we got the number 14 ranked. Can't believe. Oh my God, the state of this division. Chelsea Chandler plus 220, going up against the 15th ranked Joselyn Edwards minus 270. Sean, usually I do dumb shit like telling you to start in these scenarios, but I'm gonna be quick. Now I'm gonna be quick here.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna say that I cannot believe that Joselyn Edwards has been in the UFC as long as she has. Kind of blew my brain a little bit when I was looking into it. But both of these ladies, in my opinion, do not have a very high ceiling as far as their championship aspirations. I'll start there. And I'm being very kind here, ladies and gentlemen. But goddamn, Jocelyn Edwards is way better than Chelsea Chandler, right? We can agree on that. As far as technicality, right? As far as especially striking on the outside, just way crisper, a much twitchier athlete, right? But goddamn it, Jocelyn Edwards has so much of a worse brain than Chelsea Chandler when it comes to fighting, right? Like it if you could almost swap the two, we might have a competent fighter, right? Because I think although Chelsea Chandler athletically is everything a Diaz brother is without the boxing, but I think she makes some really good decisions as far as cutting the cage and getting the fight to an area where she can find control positions, even if it's just standing on the clinch. I'm a little worried about this matchup for Jocelyn Edwards because of that. I low-key was considering, like, hey, maybe you want to draft Jocelyn Edwards in this scenario. She's been looking better. No. Yeah, the more tapes I watch on this, I was not that convinced. But I'm convinced as far as this matchup that it can get dicey, especially along the fence if Jocelyn Edwards has a hard time keeping up with Chelsea Chandler. I just don't see the variation in takedown attempts from Chelsea Chandler that would lead me to believe that she can give her the kind of trouble that people like Eileen Perez did, right? But I think there's going to be at least a couple times where they're clinching against the cage where there is some danger for Jocelyn Edwards. Ultimately, though, if Jocelyn Edwards is improving, which the tape looks like she is, she should be able to dominate this fight from the outside and win a decision. So that's my pick.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's just exactly what I had in my notes here is that I felt that Edwards has gradually been improving when it comes to the grappling and the wrestling skills, and I feel like that's Chandler's path to victory. But I think with Edwards, she's just a much more technical striker, much more proficient, accurate, consistent. And I think someone like Chandler, whose striking is very limited but can be aggressive at times, it's almost like it's rarely seen. Like we don't really get that from Chelsea Chandler, where she really relies heavily on the close exchange of the grappling, and I think something like that could be uneventful with this fight. I think this fight could be very uneventful early on, and as Edwards tries to find her range to slowly pick apart someone like Chandler, but. To be honest with you, I just see the Chandler name has not been good to the UFC as of late, and I find this to continue. And I think Edwards gets through this one 30-27. Pretty uneventful, but I think it's going to be Edwards. The key part of this fight, which I think a lot of people won't understand, is that it'll be Edwards' ability to stop the grappling exchange and limit that and just tee off. And I think that's where Edwards will easily find victory.
You heard the man. Couldn't agree more, and I can't believe we talked this much about this fight. We move on to a division that's actually fun, right?
There
We
you go.
move on. What division is this again? Featherweight, right? This is featherweight,
Yes.
right? Yeah, look at
Got back
that.
to
Fun
back
division
featherweights.
with
Just one.
actually fun prospects. We got Timmy Cuamba plus 110 going up against Roberto Romero. The battle of two guys that are winless in the UFC. So someone's O's got to go, Sean.
Yeah. I think this is honestly, I think this is a fun fight for Romero. I really do. I pick him to win by knockout. I think it'll happen later on. I think it'll be in the third round. But for me, I just think Timmy gets off to a very slow start and can get outstruck very easily. And I think that's what's always been happening is he gets outstruck and he has a very weak defensive movement. And I feel like there are times where he can find his way to stick into fights, but I think someone like Romero, who comes in with a big boxing background, has already shown that he can hang with even tougher opponents than Onama. I think he's going to have no problem going right through him here. So I think for me, I think it's one where it's a little bit on a lopsided matchup, where I don't even think necessarily the grappling from someone like Timmy could really even play a factor. And that's something I put into my notes is maybe Timmy could, hold him down or, try to find ways to win via points. But for me, I just think that this is something where Romero is just eventually going to clip him. And I think something like that happens early in the first round, maybe even the second round. And I think just from there, Romero just completely takes over. And I'm a little surprised at the odds, but I honestly think Romero takes this pretty handily.
I love your breakdown and how convicted you are. I'll start off the top by saying I agree. I'm also going to be picking Roberto Romero here, but I have a very clear vision of this fight. Right? Let me bust this down for you. Shout out to Timmy Cuamba and the team at Extreme Couture. He's one of Dewey Cooper's guys, which I find very fascinating. Right? I think Dewey Cooper has spoken very highly of Timmy Cuamba and his prospects. And honestly, this is why I think I'm a little surprised at how you view him. Is because I see the potential in Timmy Cuamba. I think he's really fast. I think what his issue is, though, in my opinion, is that he commits to offense in a way that it forces his brain to get stuck on what he needs to do to finish his combination. And then once he's done with his offense, it's almost like, oh yeah, I did that right. And then by the time he has that reassuring moment within himself, he's already getting swarmed, right? And I think that's the way he got clipped both times against Lucas Almeida. I don't think Lucas Almeida is some kind of wizard when it comes to landing strikes, but I think in those moments he was just able to crowd him and land against someone that's relatively smaller. Now, you're not going to really have that big of a height difference in this matchup. But what I find fascinating is I think early on in this fight, Timmy Cuamba can get to Roberto Romero if he can stay on that outside edge. I think I'm going to talk about that a little bit throughout the night, but it's something I've talked about a lot before too, is just trying to find your range, right, of where you want to be to land your strikes at the end, right, of your shots. And I think for Timmy Cuamba, if he can find that range early and be snappy and move around laterally, I think he could really do damage to Roberto Romero. I think he's there to be hit, especially early. But what troubles me about this fight is exactly like you said. I think the more we end up in those exchanges, right, which is probably where we're going to end up when Timmy Cuamba is doing his thing offensively. Once we get in those exchanges, it's going to be hard, in my opinion, for Timmy Cuamba's chin to hold up, right? From everything we've seen, I don't think it's a matter of, and once again, this is me not shading Lucas Almeida, but I just feel like you need to be elite level durable at this level. Just in my opinion, in most cases to even just get here, but especially to stay here, I would argue the upper bound limits of Cuamba's skills is probably higher than Romero's, but because of the durability factor, I agree. I'm going with Roberto Romero here. This is going to be a fun fight, though. I think no matter what, we're going to see some ass kicking in this second fight for sure. All right, we move on to our first fight with dynasty implications. We've got Jaqueline Amorim minus 750 going up against Polyana Vianna at plus 600. This is the division of queens. How about that? I'm gonna switch things up, right? You just led the dance. I'm gonna let you lead the dance again, right? Because this is your dynasty fighter in a prominent marquee position. So how you feeling about Jaqueline Amorim?
Honestly, I think this I'm very confident. I think Amorim wins by first round submission. I think it's weird too because I used to be so high on Polyana Vianna. I really was. And I think she holds it especially in this fight, a slight advantage when it comes to the striking because I don't think Amorim really uses hers. But I think this one's going to be an entire grappling match. Like this almost couldn't. This might if this was under a different company, wasn't UFC, it would be the same exact fight. Like this could be a wrestling match for all I know. I think this one's going to be almost all grappling. I think the skills are super elite from Amorim, and I honestly think this is one where she's going to completely outclass Vianna on the ground. I think this is really, really straightforward and very one-sided. I think it's going to come down to the second it goes to the grappling exchange, you're almost just like waiting like a ticking time bomb for Amorim to eventually get to one of her submissions, and I think it's something that she's excels at a pretty dominant level already. And I think this one is clearly made to Not say to get the crowd on its feet, but to, if just in case these first two don't get a decision, I mean, get a knockout or a submission, that this one probably will. This is as clear cut for me as it gets when it comes to a submission on the way. So give me Amorim.
Whew, I agree with you off the top. Look, 3 fights in a row. We're picking the same fighter. You don't love to see that, but I will say I think the odds are ridiculous here. I don't agree with the odds. I think this is a much closer fight. What I find interesting though is I think, and this is my hot take, I think Jaqueline Amorim, her game is tailor-made to beat Polyana Vianna. Like the single leg attack on the outside, we just saw it work very well against Jillian Robertson. Like I think her game is built very well to match up here with Polyana. You could argue the same with Polyana striking, right? I would say though, if I'm being honest, I think although Polyana has been in the UFC this long, I think in some ways she has regressed in her striking technique. I think she stands a little higher in her stance. I don't know if that's just I'm facing a grappler thing, especially as of late, or just an adaptation she's made to feel a little more control of her head movement, because I've seen a lot more head movement in her as she's developed. She holds her hands down very low, and then even in that position, she's still slow to react to the grappling. So it's like, what are we trying to achieve here, ladies and gentlemen? Let's figure this out. Let's address this, because I think if she either was stout about, okay, if you're gonna hold your hands low, then actually let's work. Let's get these clinch positions, get these 50-50s, so that you're not being immediately overrun to the fence or straight to the mat. I think her takedown defense is shockingly bad to have sticked around this long in the UFC. Like yes. I genuinely believe that. And I think she is so much of a risky fighter with the way she gets off her offense that it just leaves her open for those opportunities even more. I don't want to see her leave the UFC because, to be honest, I don't think there's a lot of people better than her in this weight class outside of the UFC. But I think this is a great test for Amorim. Fight against somebody that you can use your skills against and be successful, but also very much so can test you with their prominent skills. So it's going to force you to do what you're good at. And I think that's a good thing for a fighter to be focused on at this point of their career. Give me Amorim. By submission, I don't know what round though. I'm probably going, and let's go round 2. How about that?
Ooh, okay.
Got to switch it up. Now we move on to another one of my favorite fights on this card. We got the bantamweight division, right? That's right. We got Malcolm Wellmaker, -120. I don't know how this man makes 135. I'll say, let's be real. This guy is huge for this division. For going up against Cameron Saaiman, +114. I love that this is a fight that has dynasty implications on my side, right? Because it puts me in an interesting spot to try to navigate the pick here. I think this is a great fight for both of these guys in very different ways. I think Cameron Saaiman must have some dirt on one of Hunter Campbell or one of his boys or something, because goddamn, right? The way he's gotten matched up in the UFC is really tough, going from C-Rod to Peyton Talbot to now Malcolm Wellmaker. It's like, let's find one of the most exciting prospects in the division to face you, because we know you're good, right? Yeah, this isn't 135 either. It's 145, right?
No, I have it as 135.
Interesting. I wonder who went up then. Anyway, sorry, guys. Sorry. I'm losing my marbles here. I like Malcolm Wellmaker a lot because of all the reasons he's exciting, right? The dude isn't necessarily the best when it comes to his process, right? But I think he is a very good athlete. And I think once he could get downhill on you in these scenarios, his pressure work is very good. I think he does have shocking power in a way that doesn't really come across on the tape, right? Like, I think the shots that he has landed and knocked people out, it's been very much so out, right? There's a shout out to Jeremy Stevens, right? When I knock people out, they don't fucking move.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Yes, sir. I think a strange part about watching Malcolm Wellmaker fight, though, is I feel like in some ways even he doesn't really know when the spark is there sometimes. Like he will land some shots that kind of look like surprise him as far as how much it affected the opponent, and then he's going in and rushing. I think in this matchup specifically, Cameron Saaiman, having worked at this level for so long, has to have gained a lot of experience, but at the same time, let's be real, has gotten his ass whooped multiple times leading up to this fight. Um, I think I think the odds are in a good spot for a good reason. I think Cameron Saaiman reminds me very much so of a way less violent young Rory McDonald with the way he fights. Like I feel like if he could chain together his grappling and show a next level willingness to pursue it, I think he could give Malcolm Wellmaker a lot of problems. I think what ultimately, though, he has fallen in love with is, despite not having success in these UFC fights, I think he's just really fallen in love with his striking and that process and that side of the game. And in this matchup, I don't think Malcolm Wellmaker is going to be the more technical fighter, but I think once again, when you get all those different situations where you're going to be trading, it's just going to be bad for you as the fight develops. So I'm going to go with Malcolm Wellmaker here, but before you even answer your pick, I got to ask you right off the top, do you see the next level potential out of the now 30-year-old that a lot of people are really hype on when it comes to Malcolm Wellmaker?
I don't know. Not at this moment, no. I'm not. But like I've said this in other episodes that we've done. It only takes one fight for me to really change my opinion of you. And I feel like I haven't seen what I needed to see out of someone like Wellmaker to really believe that even at 30 that he could turn this around and be something of a high caliber in especially in a 135 division that's already super, super, super tough. So at this moment, no. But if he goes out and does what I expect, which is him winning by second round knockout, that could change. But I'm picking him to win by second round knockout because I'm trying to believe in that. It was almost like a perfect segue you just had. I'm trying to believe that he could be that guy. And I love Cameron Saaiman. Like I didn't even want to pick against him. And like my alternate pick is Saaiman to win by alternate by decision. So for me, I think Cameron's going to rely super much on the footwork and the movement and the way he uses his like I can keep it football related like the way he blitzes and uses his angles to create his openings. I think that's something where Malcolm can find a way in camp to shut that down, and he has such a good counter strike that I think that's just going to lead into the bread and butter of someone like Wellmaker in this fight. I think even with Simon's year off to improve and try to get back on the horse, so to speak, I just still think someone like Wellmaker can come in and just not dominate, but really show that there's levels still in the unranks. And I think this is, I'm like I said, I'm choosing to believe that Wellmaker can really make a statement in this sort of fight. And I think this one will be mostly stand up. I would be very surprised if this is grapple heavy in either of these guys. And I think this is one where there's a stand up and someone's going to get clipped. And I choose to believe Wellmaker will clip Saaiman pretty simple. And I would say first round, but I'm trying to be safe. I'm going Saaiman pretty safe to lose and Wellmaker by knockout.
All right. I'm going to give you a total of 30 seconds to answer this question and we'll move on.
Oh,
would you pick Malcolm Wellmaker to beat Payne Talbot?
No. No, I would not.
That's a good question and a good barometer. We move on. The next fight, a fight that means a lot to me because shout out to Damone Blackshear for making me some real coin the last time he fought, right? The best betting win I've ever had. So shout out to that submission that he was able to secure. Roman Dolidze got it done for the decision as well. But anyway, we'll move on. But let's stop reminiscing. You see me reminiscing. My eyes glazed back there for a second. We got Damone Blackshear minus 470 going up against Alatengheili plus 380. Now, I went first for the last one, so I'm going to let you go first for this one. But I will start off by saying I was shocked when I went back and I triple checked. None of us drafted this guy, even after the surge, right? Where he was really super active last season and last year, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then even now, right? Could have been a very profitable dynasty guy for us. But yet somehow he's still sitting here available tonight. We'll see if any of us go in that direction. But Sean, lead the dance. How you feeling about this bantamweight matchup?
Honestly, I think this is another one where it's pretty one-sided. I've said this so many times how much of a fan I am of Blackshear, especially coming in on short notice. And what was it? Mario Batista he fought? I can't remember, but it was doing that on 6 days' notice is unbelievable. Even though he didn't come up with a decision, he earned my respect that night. And I said it the last time he fought that no matter what happens, I will choose and forever choose to pick Blackshear unless I believe it cannot be winnable. And so for me, I have Blackshear by first round sub. I think this is one where it comes down to Blackshear won't have the striking advantage when it comes to the power, but I do think that he has the reach advantage, and I do expect Alatengheili, whatever the fuck, to attempt. Did I almost get that?
No, you did so well, and then you're like, whatever the fuck.
Because I know I probably butchered it, but
You did well.
It's I expect I expect a lot of grappling or wrestling from him, and I expect that to go right into Blackshear's game. And I think it's almost like something Blackshear is going to promote in a way of welcoming it. And I see this one being super lopsided. I think this one is his fight to prove that he's still a top 135er right now in the unranks. And I really do hope I could see him crack the rankings within his next fight or two, because I'm always going to be a huge fan of him. It takes a lot for a guy to fight that often and to take any sort of short notice. People who like that, I know this is a Dana White quote, but people who want to fight and call me to fight are people I love the most. And those are the people that I for me as a fan will always respect. So I hope Blackshear wins. I'm picking him to win. I have a first round sub.
Damn, first round. Damn. Yeah, I looked very closely into this fight. Like in a way that I usually don't. Like I looked very closely into this fight because I thought that there could be something there for Alatengheili.
And there's not.
Yeah, there is. I think a big part of the issue as well, though, is that he fights like like his opponent has just a body built of nuclear weapons. Like he fights like if we at any point, if you land on me, I will lose this fight. Like he moves out of the way of everything. And if he had a little bit more presence in the pocket, I love his combination punching. Like, although people who listen, I'm a fan of boxing, right? He's not going out there boxing, right? He's going out there throwing fucking punches, right? And the combination of, especially the way he rips to the body and finishes combinations with hooks, like he's a very natural exchanger, right? But when it comes to leading into that, right, and putting yourself in a position and trying to like set things up, like he is so reactive to everything that's coming at him. And I think in this matchup that's going to be particularly tough because I think Blackshear is there to be hurt when it comes to the striking exchanges. Like I think in every one of his fights he's made to look uncomfortable when it comes to prolonged striking exchanges. I just think he's not going to find the opportunity to do that. And once it gets dangerous enough that like you start to feel any momentum, Blackshear is going to be on his legs, and I think he's going to be able to get him down. I like Alatengheili's base. I think he might be able to, with his strong hips, stop a lot of takedowns, and maybe even get some reversals into takedowns of his own because of how strong his base is. But ultimately, once again, like I said, I just think Damone Blackshear's too active. And I think once he gets top position specifically, he's going to be able to start flowing like he does in most positions. I think stay away from the guillotine in this fight if you're Damone Blackshear. And I know it's enticing, right? Because you just landed it. But I think if Alatengheili is controlling you from on top, I think he's going to be a little bit harder to catch into a wild submission, and I think he could win rounds in that way. I think that's the real path to victory for Alatengheili there, to stop a takedown and then eventually find his way to his own top control, even if it's from some kind of punch. Take advantage of that if you get it. But I'm going Damone Blackshear here as well, and I think he has the tools, certainly, to make it to that top 15, but it comes from matchmaking. This could have been that fight for him. I'm worried that he might not get to where he needs to in this division fast enough and might end up getting picked off by someone coming up before he even gets the chance. Let's get him in there with one of them top 15.
I hope so.
We move. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It needs to happen. We move on to another fight that needs to fucking happen, right? This is a fight that makes no sense to me. The fact that we have insisted on getting it after 2 rebookings, and now this is the third, when we have people that are so, I mean, you could argue Chris Gutierrez is close, but so far away from getting ranked. Like, this fight does not matter. This is another one, like we talked about with Rose earlier. Like, why this fight? Why are you insisting on this fight? I don't understand it. It's good for me and my dynasty prospects, right? Because my guy Chris Gutierrez looks to be getting a win here. But every iteration of this fight, the odds have gotten closer. Have you noticed that?
Because it's the longer we've waited for it.
Yeah, right. The longer, the more anticipation, I guess.
Was this supposed to be 313? I think this was supposed to be on the 313 card.
I don't know.
Keep going.
I feel like 2025 has just been a blur, if I'm being honest. But yeah, one day we'll figure it out. One day we'll be able to slow down the time here. But I think this matchup is just going to be death by 1,000 leg kicks. Whose leg kicks are better? And I think that's Chris Gutierrez. I think his movement is also a little bit more sharp too. And once we've talked about this fight enough, once he's able to get John Casteneda following him, I think he's gonna be able to snipe him from the outside. But yeah, I want this fight to be good. I want John Casteneda to mix in takedowns and show us his really cool grappling, because I think he has really cool grappling, not just for this division, but for the UFC in general. But yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. Give me Chris.
Yeah, you see, in my notes, I'm trying to be positive. I even wrote, this has the ability to be a high-level competitive striking battle. But that was what I said at 313. I just copy and pasted my notes here. So I think this is one where this is going to be very, very technical, sharp counters from Gutierrez. And I think, honestly, the pace of either one of these guys controlling this fight is who's going to win, who's going to make them fight their fight, right? So if that makes any sense to you, whoever's going to control the octagon. And for me, I think this is one where I'd be very surprised if Gutierrez isn't the one controlling this fight. I think both of these guys' defense are up to par. I wouldn't even say that. I think they're decent. I think this is one where this is the striking is going to be the main point, and I just see Gutierrez being a little bit more crisp, a little bit more precise, especially when it comes to countering and the technicals and the 1-2s. And I just see Gutierrez coming away with a very small decision win. I don't care for this fight, as Siri just tried to talk. As incredible as this fight was when it first got announced for me, like, I looked at it as pretty positive. I'm ready to just move forward into this next chapter. I'm very surprised the UFC is stuck with even making this over and over and over again. So for me, I think this is full camp. I pray that it lives up to the hype, but I don't care really how this one turns out for either of these guys, but I'm picking Gutierrez to win by decision.
Gutierrez by decision, 6 fights, 6 favorites. If there was one underdog you're picking, who is it?
Listen, You're coming after me, but you're like right there with me, right?
I got the same picks. I'm gonna answer the
All
question
right,
too. You fuck.
that sounded very much like you were coming after me. See, we went like 7 fights before you already came out and attacked. We just talked about before the show
Yeah, I did attack you. I'm
how we're
sorry.
trying to be nice. You know what? Maybe I don't. Maybe I go all favorites this entire card now just because you said that.
Hey, we might need a podcasters therapy. I wasn't saying it like, listen, now I'm clarifying what I meant, right? This is a real relationship here, ladies and gentlemen. But I was not saying it to say, when are you going to pick a fucking underdog? I was saying, if there was an underdog you were going to pick out of the first 6, who would it
All
be?
right.
That was my
Well,
question.
and I don't, I think this one would have probably been for me. Oh, I was gonna say Casteneda, but I can't even. Maybe probably for me, I
Can't
probably would
even
have
bring
said
yourself
Cameron.
there, right?
That one almost had me, but
I'm going
what?
Cuamba. I'm staying on that hill.
Okay,
I'm going Cuamba. Yeah, I think
okay.
that one's closer. But I like it. I like where your head's at. We move on to a very exciting fight. Dude, I didn't realize how pumped I was for this fight until I realized that one of the original participants of this fight got removed entirely from the UFC because he got arrested for apparently
Oh,
statutory rape. But I think what I found very interesting about this UFC is the guy didn't make his debut yet, right? So you just cut him immediately, and I get he went to jail. But are you saying that children is where you draw the line on rape? That's my question. That's my question, UFC. Is that where you draw the line? Clearly it is. Rest in shit, Mr. Hassanzada. We move on to Evan Elder, minus 200, going up against the very late notice, Gage Young, plus 175. We have made it to the pinnacle, Sean. So who you
oh, so
got?
now it's my turn. After all that, you're gonna leave this to me. Okay. Well, for me, I'm picking.
Try to set the stage, right? You
I
got to
know,
set the
and
stage as
I'm
the
going
host.
favorite again because you said that. All right, so I'm going Elder. I think
Okay.
this one pretty unanimous here. I think Young has a lot sharper when it comes to the striking, head kicks, crisp boxing. But I think Elder's wrestling and ground and pound are just expected to fully take over this fight and be easily the deciding factors when it comes to um, what happens next, especially when it comes against a short notice sort of fighter coming in. It almost feels like that's the safe care package in finding a way to victory. And some people like use short notice fighters coming in to fight them as an opportunity to test their skills and try things that they put in camp and be like, you know what, I had never tried the spinning elbow, back fist, crazy shit that I've done. But I'll try it in this fight. I think this one's not going to be that way. I think this one's going to be a safe, let's just get a victory, keep this train moving. And I think this one's going to be, honestly, I think this one's going to be pretty boring, to be completely honest with you. Um, I think this one is going to be pretty one sided. And I'm going to be a little disappointed if Elder can't finish him. And that's why I put it that he wins by unanimous decision. So give me Elder by UD.
Hey, respect your elders. I love it. I had one Evan Elder in my crosshairs for many reasons for dynasty purposes because I was like, man, this guy's actually fucking fun to watch on tape. I was like, this guy's actually
Yeah.
crafty and unique, right? Which I think is always something that gets me excited as a UFC fan when people have their own unique fighting styles. Um, I I think Gage Young has a little bit of that Kaolin Lahrain in him. I think he is a little stiff. Um, I do think, though, once again, you never know what you're dealing with when you come in on short notice like this. Just ask one Alexander Hernandez. I think outside of getting shocked by something like that, I think this should be Evan Elder's fight to win. I thought the previous matchup was a fight that he was in a good position to win too. Um, keep your eye out for Evan Elder. I think this guy sneaky, lost a couple fights to some guys that might do some things in the UFC. One of them being one of your favorite people to hate in Preston
Hell yeah.
Parsons. But I think Evan Elder might sneaky end up being someone like a. This is a great pull right here. Someone like a. How did I forget his first name? Dennis Bermudez. Someone that sticks around in the UFC, finds a niche, and ends up being top 15 at some point where you didn't really expect it. But that's what I got. That's all I got for
Oh, that's good enough.
you. Yeah, it has to be. Move on to one of my favorite asterisks on this fight card, because I was like, hey, we got a flyweight fight, which is always fun. Don't get me wrong, but this fight has a particular MMA bummer attached to it.
Yeah,
Are you
what is
ready?
it?
Are you ready, Sean? This is the hey guys, we retired fight, because both of these guys retired very recently, and then say, you know what, fuck it, I actually got a couple bills to pay. I'm not gonna hold y'all, so we back, and now we get to see. I'm hey, the loser might very well be forced to retire, at least from the UFC. So we got that, not necessarily to look forward to, but that resolution is going to come out of this one. I love Matt Schnell. One part of one of the best fights, maybe you could argue the best fight I've ever seen live in person, with between Matt Schnell and why did I forget? Why does this happen to me? Right? What the fuck, man? Just got Swiss cheese
It's been a
brain,
while.
right? Where I'll be mid sentence. Can you remind me of this man's name? Yes,
Okay.
Sumadarji. There we go. One of the best fights I've ever seen, in person.
That
But
was a long time ago.
a frustrating fighter, I will admit. Yeah, a very long time ago. Which also blows my mind, man. Time is a flat circle, which keeps
That's
running.
for sure.
I think both of these guys are susceptible where the other one is good. I just don't think Jimmy Flick has a way to get this fight to the ground, which leads me to think Matt Schnell should win. Now, I do have to throw this in there because both of these guys just retired. Matt Schnell has a very suspect chin. Like, I don't think it's suspect enough that Jimmy Flick is going to knock him out, but I think it could get dicey. I think if there's going to be a takedown, it'll probably be a knockdown, right? Which is crazy to consider with how bad Jimmy Flick's striking is. But I don't understand the odds in this. I guess that's why the odds are where they are, because there's that chance. But I think Matt Schnell should cruise to a victory here. Am I crazy,
Yeah, I think
Sean?
this one is third round knockout for Schnell. I think this is. I'm almost like convinced Schnell called Flick's camp and was like, "Listen, we can make a bag here." And I think Schnell knew, like, I can beat this guy, so let me call him. Oh, he recently retired too. Hold on. Yo, we still got that one fight left on the deal. You want to throw it together? Yeah, I'll call. And then you guys, I'll just recommend you, right? You do the same. Like, yeah, I'll take Matt. And so I think this is a whole setup by Matt. I'm convinced this is a conspiracy, and that Matt Schnell's team purposely put this shit together. Jimmy Flick has no idea what he's preparing himself for. I think Schnell has a way better, way more clear advantage in the striking. I think Flick's going to do everything he can to force this into the grapple, uh, and it just won't happen. But yes, I do think Schnell has a very suspect chin, exactly the same words you said. But I don't think Flick is the one that's going to affect it because he's got one of the weaker stand-ups, I think, in this division. So I think this is one where Schnell cruises to victory. And then someone's going to have to remind him that this is not real UFC town anymore, that this is just a nice little payday, and to consider retiring again, go out on top. This is probably the best for you, brother. Please put the glove down. Please, for the sake of all of us, lock the gym. Don't come back. All right?
Damn.
And Flick, I hope Flick gets a bag and then really remembers that he can't do this anymore and that he could say he fought until 2025. So good for him. But this should be a very quick one-sided fight. I say third round because these two guys did just call it a career. And who knows? We can have a Nick Diaz fucking versus Robbie Lawler 2 show-off where it's slow motion in there. So we will see. You know, anytime that's like that where a fighter's been gone for a couple of years or has retired and come back, you almost feel like you have no idea how to look at the fight because they don't even consider themselves the same person anymore. So I think to me this is one where Schnell wins easily, but I hope they both retire again.
I agree 1,000%. I will add before we move on that when you explained that, it reminded me of when you're trying to get your cousin to come over, but like you pissed your parents off earlier, so you get them to call. Like, no, you ask her if you could come over type shit because I already
exactly.
fucked up.
That's exactly how it is.
That was a good one.
I fully expect that to happen here.
We move on to a division that makes no sense, the middleweight division, where we have one of Sean's golden boys and facing a former Sean Dynasty member, but he got kicked out, right? So this is a chance at redemption for Andre Muniz at plus 400. With that perspective, why don't you let us know how you feel about this middleweight tilt?
I think this is a pretty one-sided fight again. I think this is Kansas City is going to be built for very fun one-sided fights that consider going back to Kansas City again a second time. I think that's exactly how these. I'm like, you know me. I'm into the whole conspiracy thing. I'm like trying to figure out what's underneath the cover of when you only for UFC shit. I could care less of what happens with the world, but when it comes to the UFC, I'm convinced. I'm convinced that the UFC always has some sort of secret, sneaky plan, and because this is back in Kansas City, I think half of the UFC wants to move away from the apex, and the higher ups do not. So I think when you book a card like this, you have people and you have the matchmakers make fights like these where Ikram is still considered, to me especially, I love Ikram, a top tier guy in the middleweight division. I think he's fucking gonna be a force. Still, I don't care what anybody says. And I think putting someone like Andre Muniz in there, it's just going to perfectly set that example. Like, Andre's a big enough name where you've heard of him if you're casual. So you get Ikram to go in there. I think Muniz brings in a lot of hype to his own name. I think he's super good with the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think Aliskerov is so good with the counter wrestling. And I think something's got to give. And I think it's going to be the Sambo background that's just going to fully take over this fight. And for me, I think this is one where it's going to be power versus aggression. And I think eventually aggression leads to grappling. And I think someone like Muniz, who could be pretty hesitant and, when he's getting clipped a little bit, rely on his takedowns, kind of goes right into Ikram's territory. And I think this is going to be Ikram's fight to lose. So I would be very surprised. If Aliskerov was to lose this fight, I honestly would think that it'd probably be not my upset of the year, but probably the most shocking loss I expect throughout this entire 2025 for me. And so I think Aliskerov wins this one by making sure Muniz falls into the trap. And when you're in the trap, you don't escape. And I think Ikram just abuses the shit out of him, either on the ground, in the ground and pound, or just stand-up knockout. And I think it's just going to be a bad day. Someone like Andre Muniz. I have this one second-round knockout easy for Ikram.
Man, no matter where it goes, Muniz is getting his ass beat. That's what you're telling me. I love Andre Muniz's game because he's so unique. Once again, like so strange. Something that I love that he does is just like the way he got that arm bar. I'm trying to remember who that was against. Let me pull this up because I have it right here. I have it right here. My guy Andre Muniz. You know what's so funny? There's no way I'm admitting to this right now, but I'm gonna admit to it anyway, right on the show. I don't know what happened. This is the only person on the entire fight card. I just double checked that has no notes. Like I don't have anything on this man. I don't know how that happened, but I'm trying to remember who was that armbar. Was it who did he get that armbar on? Let's see.
You got it.
By sub. Was it Eric Anderson? No, it was Jacare. That's who I was talking about. Yes, because it was such a unique. position to even like attempt anything, and it wasn't necessarily like a typical armbar in the way that he fully committed, right? But he was able to lock up that spot and just break his arm just from that position. I think if he can isolate a limb, obviously Ikram's going to be in trouble. But I agree with you. I think generally, if Ikram has shown an Achilles heel in his fights and his losses against Khamzat Chimaev and Robert Whittaker, some of the stacked, hey, if you're gonna have losses on your resume, right? Those are some of the best losses to have. But I just think there's no shot Andre's gonna knock him out here. So yeah, I think Aliskerov might get a first round knockout here. So yeah, give me Ikram as well. Good luck to your dynasty boy. But we move on to a welterweight fight with another dynasty implication. We got Randy Rude Boy Brown minus 275 going up against Nicolas Dalby plus 235. I don't know if you've noticed, Sean, but Nicolas Dalby is a darling in this MMA world, this MMA bubble that we are subscribers to. And I think a lot of people love him because obviously he's had a lot of staying power, regardless of how high his peaks have been and how low his valleys have been, right? In the UFC. I think he also, once again, another one of those guys that has a very unique style, and another one of those guys that has had some insane upsets in his career, which will once again give you a great case to stay here in the UFC. I don't really understand everyone's willingness to bet money on Nicolas Dalby as an underdog here. I think ultimately this is a fight where if you're telling me that Nicolas Dalby, who I love watching fight and I think is a goddamn dog, right? There's few fighters in the UFC that have more heart than Nicolas Dalby. But if you're going to tell me that you want to participate in this fight at range for your game, and you're fighting Randy Brown, and that's a good idea, I'm going to argue with you because I don't think that's a good idea. I think Randy Brown's super fast, super crisp. All the good comes with all the bad, right? He is also positionally unaware. This is his make or break moment for me. I think this is a tailor-made position for him to win, but also a losable fight, right? Considering that a lot of his losses come from moments, like shocking moments that lead to a finish. I think he can get shocked here and then get out just from that point, out sprinted to the finish. I think he needs to put himself in a position where he's in control of this fight. It's all out there in front of him, and then he's able to land a knockout shot against Nicolas Dalby. This is the showcase moment that can potentially get you back in that top 15 space, that if you play your cards right, you're not a gatekeeper. You are someone that is looked at as a top 15 guy. I think Randy Brown is one of the most experienced young vets. Like I think we've seen a lot of phases of his career play out in the UFC, which is rare to get. And I think his improvement is very tangible. I think the last fight with Muslim Salikov is a very good indicator that he's working towards the things he needs to, right, to get this job done here. But I'm still worried, right? Nicolas Dalby's a dog. He gets the job done. But I'm super impressed with Randy Brown, and I think his development has been exciting for someone who owns him in Dynasty. So, Randy Brown, take us home.
It sucks that you said that because I actually have it the same way, but this is like the highlight tape. This is like when you look back, you can remember what Randy Brown did in this fight. Honestly, it kind of goes against of what I have when it comes to a decision, because I have Brown winning by unanimous decision, but like I have a feeling that this is one where Brown can really be himself, if that makes any sense, where, you know, thanks to his range and his length, can really use his overhand right, you know, at ease. And I think something like that where Dalby can do the same thing, where Dalby's better at close range. We're trying to get in close and then using, you know, a counter left to the body, overhand right, where Brown loves to keep it at range, use his length, and just piece you up in a place you can't reach him. And I think the problem with Randy Brown is that he relies on that so much, so that when fighters really do just take that extra half step in, Brown really has a tough time reacting to that, rounding it out and finding a way back to keeping it at his distance, or using that and maybe going to the grappling, or pushing away, or whatever, using the whole octagon to keep into his fight. I feel like it's so quick to get in his own head that once he's uncomfortable, he's kind of like the light bulb goes off on the top of his head. Like he's trying to figure it out. He's begging the coaches to think of something he wouldn't have thought of. And sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes it does. I think he's got incredible power. I think Dalby's going to have an easy opportunity to secure takedown and gain advantage. But I think Brown is just going to be the favorite to me, because I think this is one where he can really keep this fight at range. And I think this is one where he could be as comfortable as possible, almost like this fight was made for him. But I'm not taking anything away from Dalby, because this is one of the 3 fights that I have. I've already discussed one of them where I actually have Dalby winning this by decision himself, because Dalby can find a way to keep this fight close and really keep Brown stepping back. Dalby, I think, takes this one easy. But I have to believe that Randy Brown is still at a UFC level, and this is a reason why when he joined UFC, fights like this were made for him. And I still think after all these years, it's still the same way. And I think I think Brown can easily pick apart someone like Dalby. And I think, safe bet, I think it's by decision, but I would not be surprised if he found a way to finish Dalby by the 2nd or 3rd round.
You're the man. We move on. Thank you for reassuring me. And we're just picking the entire same board.
This is what happens
at this
when you
point.
do it for 3 years, bro.
We have not picked. We have not picked any underdogs. Just all favorites.
I told you, it's a conspiracy.
But hey, well, maybe one day. Yeah, literally though, we move on to the division of kings, the middleweight division, the joke division. We get the 14th ranked Michel Pereira minus 138 going up against one of Sean's favorite fighters to hate.
Fuck Abus.
Is that a train? Is that a plane? No, it's Abus. We got Magomedov. Abus Magomedov plus 134, 125. This is a coin flip fight on the odds.
Let me just go off here. I'm done. All right.
Okay, go ahead.
I hope Michel Pereira obliterates this man. I hope this shit he's fucking steps on his head, flattens it out. That's how much I hope this fight ends as quickly as possible. Dude, I will never get over the Abus hype of fucking when he went up against Sean Strickland. I don't give a fuck. All right. And I wasn't even a fan of Sean Strickland like that. But the hype that this man came in to get a main event on a stupid little fight night card, I think it was at the Apex, just to get fucking teed off on and run out of gas in 3 minutes. I wish they cut him that night. That's what I was begging for. I was hoping that Dana White, who wasn't even there, got on IG Live and said he was cut. That's what I was begging for. I was checking Dana White's IG the entire night, waiting for that live to happen, because he talked him up like crazy about, it's going to be a great fight. It's going to be a big one. Unranked versus Sean. Oh, look. And then Sean, for some reason, got, I think he fought one more time or another unranked guy, and then he got the title shot, which ended up beating Adesanya, which is crazy. But it was like the king of the overhype of the unranked edition of Abus Magomedov. I will never get over this. I was glad he won whatever it was, last fight, the fight before, because it kept him in just so I can continue to hate on this man, and I will continue to hate on this man. Pereira is here. I love what he's done in this division. I hope Abus never sees a number next to his name, and he won't, because this is going to be very one-sided. Yes, this is probably a biased / clouded thought because of how much I don't like Magomedov. But I think even with Pereira's vulnerability in the grappling exchanges, I still think, Pereira is such a fucking monster that if he just holds on for 5 to 6, 7 minutes, I think people think that that's going to raise concern for Pereira. I still think, for Ferreira, I think this is one. Jesus Christ, for Pereira, I'm confusing it. Jesus Christ, for Pereira, I think this is one where Abus is going to be tired as well. And I think this is one where you can add this to the highlight reel tape of Pereira's finishes. And I have this one third round knockout. I'm begging for a first round knockout, but third round knockout. Pereira keeps going. Love this guy since he's moved to this weight class, and I hope it continues on.
I like the way you broke that down because I generally agree. Once again, sadly, I think it kind of makes sense why this fight is evenly lined because the people that Michel Pereira loses to, it never makes sense, right? Shout out to Diego Sanchez. Shout out to
Word.
Tristan Connolly for finding a way to get it done. It never makes sense, except for the last one. I think Anthony Hernandez is very legit, and I think even in that loss, I think Michel Pereira showed a lot of improvement, but also a lot of mental fortitude to be able to be getting ground into the dirt like that and never once quit on yourself is a special trait. I think not a lot of people gave him the credit he deserved for that in an absolute drubbing. Don't get me wrong. It was fun when he was able to hurt him and close while it lasted. But once that tide turned, it turned. And that man never gave up until he was forced to. I think that's important to reiterate because you could not say that about him earlier in his career. You could not. So say what you want about the techniques. Abus ain't coming out here and grinding to that level. I'll tell you that. There's no way Michel Pereira is going to get gassed out because Abus is just some next level grappler. I do think early on in that fight, though, Abus could be really tough, especially with his length at this division, and could potentially hurt Michel coming in, being reckless. I particularly couldn't get that front kick out of my mind, man. I think if he can work that front kick early and often, I think he could keep a wall between him and Pereira. And I think someone aggressive like Pereira, once those irritations start to come through, it puts them in a position where they start to get desperate. And I think that's where Abus can potentially capitalize on this. But I agree. I think Michel Pereira has shown to be a much more consistent destroyer at 185 pounds. And I think whenever he does connect, it's not going to be early, right? It's not going to be within the first minute of the fight. He's going to get avoided for a while. But when he does connect, you'll see the difference in the power, and it'll eventually lead to the momentum shifting. I got Michel Pereira as well. Give me second round knockout. We move on to the featherweight division. We get another one, ladies and gentlemen. The number 12th ranked Giga Chikadze plus 170 going up against David Onama minus 188. You got to lead the dance in the last one, so I'm taking the reins. God damn it. I love this fight. I love everything about this fight, except for the fact that it looks like I talked myself into this one, all right? Because
you
listen,
better not
this
do
is
it.
a head-to-head dynasty. This is a head-to-head dynasty matchup. Giga Chikadze versus David Onama. I have all the Giga shares. I have been practicing my Giga kick leading up to this. I'm picking Giga Chikadze here, and that might be a hot take, but David Onama gets hurt in every fight that he's involved in. I gotta say, it is remarkable the levels in which he gets hurt. I think something that he doesn't get the credit for as well that is remarkable is he's a physical specimen. I think that's what is single-handedly keeping him in the UFC. But I think this fight, he's really going to be outmatched, and I don't think he has the pressure skills to consistently find Giga Chikadze. Now, if David Onama survives to the third round, we got problems, ladies and gentlemen. Because especially at this age, man, Giga Chikadze falls off a fucking cliff in that third round. And if that's when you could really get to him. But I don't know, man. I just don't see it getting there. I think Giga Chikadze is going to be able to land something early and often. And whenever he does hurt Onama, I just think he has the craft to get him out of there. I think obviously Onama could just shock him with his power and knock him out. I think that's a good shot for that to happen too. But I feel like all the times in which he has won in that way in the UFC, there's sort of a agreement with his opponent to say, hey, fuck it, we'll trade. And Giga is not that guy, bro. Giga's not going to sit there and exchange punches with you. He's going to try to line you up so that he can land and then keep skirting off on the other side of the fence. So give me Giga Chikadze. It's not going to be fun until it is, but once he gets that knockout, we're going straight to the bank with it. How about that?
Oh, dude. Let me just start off by saying I picked Giga to win. And that's the fight this was the one I was praying for when it came to you might take all the favorites. But because you picked him, I don't know if I could pick him.
Oh, you're going favorite now.
I might have to go for the first time ever an all favorite card. And you know what? I will, just because we need to be a little different here, all right? We need to be a tad bit different.
Okay.
I don't like us having every single one the same. All right, because if you win, you're only up 2 on me. If I win, I tie it up. So give me Onama, because I do firmly believe the next 2 are going to be. I think the main event's going to be different between us, but I do think that this will be a nice second fight to be different. I had Giga winning it because I think Giga's just going to abuse the legs and keep it to his rhythm those first 7-8 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes, the first 2 rounds. But I, like you said, it's exactly in my notes. I think Giga dies when it comes to 10-minute mark. And I think if Onama hasn't been abused and obliterated by then, I think Onama could really take over in the 3rd round. And I still think that even by the middle of the 2nd round, we could really start to see the tide turn. And I'm hoping, for Onama's sake, that he can kind of limit the damage that he's going to receive, because he accepts the damage. But the problem with him is, I don't think he realizes what his line, what the bar over his head, in the fucking Street Fighter is. I don't think he realizes, he thinks, he's only lost this much. He's really lost this much. And I think that gets him into a lot of trouble at times. And for me, I'm going to pray that he's still got this much left when it comes to the 2nd round. And I'm going to pray that eventually Onama's ability to just go really tight and up close to the boxing combinations, calm it down, with the boxing combinations, and especially shots to the body, I think could really be dangerous for someone like Chikadze. I think you could really start to piece him apart like Chikadze has done for so many years to others. I don't think Chikadze is the same fighter since Calvin Kattar obliterated him. And so for me, I have to believe this is one of those, like I always say, where you bring in the new school to get rid of the old school. And I look at Chikadze as an old school type fighter, as much as Onama really isn't the new school, I guess you could say. But I look at Chikadze as sort of an old school type fighter, the Calvin Catters of the world, very big name once upon a time, slowly starting to fall off a little bit. And even so, I had Giga winning it by points because I felt Giga was going to do enough to win the first 2. But I have to believe that Onama's going to come in and just do just enough to either win by decision, taking that 2nd round. I think the 2nd round is going to be the factor in this whole fight, or find a way for Onama to knock him out in the 3rd round. So I think those are the 2 paths, and I'm going to pray Onama wins that 2nd round.
I love that we were in fake agreement until you just decided to flip it. I mean, it makes sense though, because I agree this is a 2 true outcome fight, right? It's like you flip the coin, and whoever was going to win is the guy that got the conditions that they needed that night, basically. But we
Anthony
move on
Smith.
to what I'm
All
sure.
right, let me take over.
What I'm sure is Sean's favorite opportunity to speak about this man, because it's going to be the last opportunity he gets until we're forced to do a breakdown of Slap Fight 16,026, and it's Anthony Smith versus
I don't even know their names over there.
Soa Pelele in slap fighting, and the winner of that gets to fight for the slap fighting title.
Dude. I'm so thankful this is the last time. I was hoping 2 fights ago was the last time. But, man, thank God. Zhang by a million. I hope it's obliteration. I know people think Anthony Smith's a nice guy, and he probably is. I've told you this, and it still bothers me to my core. And I've even told my friend at work about this, and he came back with, like, every fighter says this. When he fought whatever the fuck his name is, who did he just beat last? Like 3 fights ago, and Ryan Spann.
Petrino?
When he beat Ryan Spann and came out and said, "Man, I'm 1 fight away from a title," I immediately that day I was like, nah, fuck that, fuck this guy.
You might never win
Fuck
again,
this guy forever, dude. Because I just couldn't believe he would say something like that. And then you were out here like, man, he's not wrong.
He's not though. He's
moment
not. He might fuck around and win this fight and get a title shot.
This is gonna end in the first round. All right, this is the one you can put the gloves down and we could all say, "Hey, good job." Hey, I will give him props though in that title fight against John Jones, and I will give him the props on a respectable career to be still ranked all these years later, even though he shouldn't be.
Hey, let's cut this right. Let's give him respect for the actual best fight of his career, and that was his performance against Volkanovski. That was his real peak performance.
I will give him that. So it's, I respect his entire career. I'm actually gonna look up right now.
That's an AI clip that I just heard. You just said I respect Anthony Smith's entire career.
I do, because I have to respect anyone.
The way I need to mash this up with all the clips of you just talking about all the ways in which you hate
I don't
Anthony
like Anthony Smith, especially after that comment. You lost me, but I have to respect.
Can I add to the comments that Anthony Smith has made real quick that pissed us off? Leading up to this fight, when discussing the Dominic Reyes fight, because that was the last one, right? Let me double check. Yes, it was the last one. That was the last ass kicking. When discussing that fight, the quote that alarmed me in a similar way to the one you just gave, but the opposite reason, he said that what he took away from the fight with Dominic Reyes was that it was inspiring that Dominic Reyes, now hear this, took every opportunity to whip his ass in that fight.
It's nice.
It's not an exact quote, but that was the essence of what he was saying. That basically, like, he didn't have pity on me. He whipped my ass. That's basically what he said. Which, in many ways, like the other things we talked about with Anthony Smith, it's a very respectable comment, even though it's fucking ridiculous. Hey, you know what? I respected Anthony Smith.
No, I respect his career. I didn't say respect him. All right, that's all I'm saying. And a guy who, I'm looking this up, a whopping 13-11 in the UFC, but to be in the UFC since 2016, right? If I'm doing this right, 2016, talking about 9 years, 10 years of fighting in the UFC, 25 fights. Listen, that's respectable. That's you don't really get that anymore. Even someone like Michael Johnson, who we consider the joke of lightweight, has somehow rejuvenated back into the UFC. Dude, I think still has a negative record in the UFC all these years later, but he's got like 20 fights under his belt. Loves to fight, and I get it. Eventually you just need someone to beat the shit out of Michael Johnson. You throw him in there, and I think that's what Anthony Smith has been for the last 2 to 3 years. I don't really count the Vitor Petrino fight. Vitor Petrino has disappointed me almost just as much as anybody that has been in the UFC, because I really was a big fan of Petrino, and then he died off because he could only last 3 minutes. Pause. So it's, for me, I think Zhang goes in there, obliterates him. I could break this down, but I think we all know how this is about to turn out. I think this is going to be super engaging for Zhang. I think people are going to pray Smith can rewind the clock 15 years. He's not going to. And this is one where I think this is an aggressive style for Zhang to just power right through Smith, and I think this one eventually just gets over quickly. I hope the ref is fully ready to stop this fight before Smith is waking up to more nightmares of some unfortunate circumstances that have happened outside of the octagon. So I hope they keep him steady so that he can have his walkout and thank the Kansas City crowd for the career that he's had. Like I said, I will always respect him for the title fight against John Jones, continuing to fight, and even though not winning that night, could have easily milked his way to holding a belt. So I do appreciate that. I feel, for me, and I said this to you, this is why I didn't like the Paddy Pimblett versus Michael Chandler fight, where I hate fights that waste my time, and I feel like Anthony Smith has wasted my time for 5+ years now. And I don't care if I'm full hater mode. This might sound like I'm hating, and I'm not trying to hate. I just don't have patience. This is what happens when you're both from New York. Maybe I'm just more of an asshole. But for me, I just think I've had enough of Anthony Smith. I'm thankful it's over, and I hope he doesn't get his lights put out, but I hope Zhang goes right through him. And, we can – so there leaves no doubt that he's done. And I don't mind. I'll listen to him talk shit and pretend he knows what he's talking about in the booth, when he's sitting up there with Chael Sonnen up top, like they always do for every pay-per-view card. And they throw him up top so that they talk for like 6 minutes every 3 hours. Whatever, I can deal with that. But, I appreciate you, Smith, for 25 fights in the UFC and a 10-year run. But, enjoy yourself. Know when it's time. And it should have been time, but I guess Dana wanted to give you your own way to lose and do that on a fucking co-main. Would never be a co-main. You would be probably like the third fight on this card. But we'll pretend that you still have the pull to get a co-main. So, Zhang, good luck to you. Smith, we'll see you probably the next pay-per-view talking shit.
Yeah, honestly, you should have just gave Giga Chikadze an Onama the co-main, if I'm being real.
Anthony Smith should be...
That's the second best fight on this card,
Smith
right?
should be behind fucking Ikram, if I'm being completely honest. Ikram should be ahead.
Yeah, no, for
if
real.
we look at really any of these, even I would even
just bump that down. Yeah, just bump that down.
Blackshear,
bump everything else up.
I don't care. Like, that's how much.
That's just a testament of how you feel. Listen, I'll make this quick because
potential in both those fighters. Like, Anthony Smith fighting means nothing. It even if he didn't announce.
Yes, but that's one half of the fight, motherfucker. And it does mean something for Ming Yang Zhang. Because, I mean, clearly they want to build his name.
Sure. But even no matter what happens, if Zhang goes in there and obliterates him, right? You're not gonna look at it as like.
Yo, bro, how many fucking times are you gonna say obliterate on this episode? I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna edit the Yu-Gi-Oh clip every time you say that shit, and it's gonna be like Exodia. Obliterate, and then it's gonna go back to you.
Absolutely manhandles, destroys, annihilates. You happy? All right. It doesn't matter what Zhang does in this because it's the most shelled, washed up version of Anthony Smith possible. So it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter how this fight turns out. It loses if he doesn't knock him out. It's almost like a loss. So Zhang has to go through him. So as much as this fight is good for the other half for Zhang, it really doesn't matter unless it's like a 10-second knockout. But, or whatever. I shouldn't say 10-second, 2-minute knockout. If it's not, it's almost like more and more disappointing that you weren't able to put away the guy who has been so lost in the cosmos for the last 2 years. And for some reason, they think he deserves a fucking farewell fight. If they play a highlight tape of Anthony Smith like they did Robbie Lawler, I'm turning it off before I watch the Ian Gary fight. There better not be. It should be a thank you, see you in the booth, buddy, and adios. I'm good. And I'm not even trying to hate on Anthony Smith. There's no way you built that career to get that. Robbie Lawler built that career. Don't do that. Don't milk this more. We've already watered down the Hall of Fame. Don't water this shit down. Keep this shit precise. Just let him put the glove down and go. I'm telling you.
Yeah, what I don't get is like if you're the UFC, like I get that you like this guy, so I guess that's a part of it, right? But like what is the difference between this fight that we're getting and them running it with Bogdan Guskov or them running it with maybe Alonzo Menafield? It's just like once again, the glue factory. Someone's got to go out there and die, and hey, we need it on this date, so we're gonna make it
Exactly.
happen. I guess I agree with you in that way. This fight doesn't matter, but to give my thoughts, I think Ming Yang Zhang sucks, and I think he will eventually be fraud checked when he fights somebody that does more than just get punched in the face. But I will say that I don't think this is the fight that's going to give him trouble. I think the odds are in a good spot. I think Anthony Smith, being the crafty guy that he is, it makes sense why he isn't a smaller underdog. I think you could argue he could even be a bigger underdog, if that's what I'm trying to say. I just feel like for the majority of Anthony Smith's career, I would not imagine picking Ming Yang Zhang. But at this point of his career, there's no way I would pick Anthony Smith, and it's just the state of things, right? Let's just be honest here. Whoever robbed his house that night, you robbed us of another title run. I'm just gonna say.
Maybe in his mind.
Yeah,
it's not a reality.
I think in his heart as well.
Not for a
We move
13,
on.
12 fighter.
Yeah, we're both picking Ming Yang Zhang. So we move on to my favorite fight on the card, the best fight on the card.
Yes.
Carlos Pratas, save us all. We got the number 7 ranked Ian Machado Gary, fresh off of the biggest loss of his career against Shavkat Rakhmonov, going up against Carlos Prates, plus 130, coming off of the biggest win of his career. The biggest, a knockout win, like all of his other wins in the UFC have been against Neil Magny, opponent that they share. I like that I get to go first on this one, Sean, because I got a lot to say about this fucking fight. Okay?
I don't. So do you want me to
Let's
just
start
go
here.
so you could take over? All right.
Sure, go ahead.
For me, I know you're picking Prates because I know you well enough. I'm picking Gary to win. I think Gary takes this one. It's going to be a very technical fight, to be completely honest with you.
Does that mean it's going to be boring,
I think
Sean?
it's going to be pretty boring. I actually find this one to be where it's kind of like how I think it's like the world Gary likes to live in his fights, where you get these fights that you expect to be fucking like bangers, right? The Michael Page fight, the Shavkat fight, while they were good fights, you almost like expect more, and it doesn't end up turning out to be that way. And I think this is one where it's kind of like I think Gary's going to do a lot to force this to the ground. I think he's going to try to do a lot of grappling, a lot of wrestling, a lot of just holding him, not holding him like he's trying to just steal rounds, but really just trying to take this fight away from the stand-up. I think Prates is incredible, but I think this is a great matchup for him because it's going to make him very uncomfortable. And I think for me, I see Gary doing what he's always been doing and making this a very technical bout and really finding a way to – the first round, I think he's going to have a hard time trying to figure it out. Like he was against Shavkat, where I think in the Shavkat fight, he was very hesitant because he was trying to figure out who Shavkat was and if the hype was real, and he was getting pieced up early. And you were kind of waiting for Gary to do something. And in the second round, Gary was doing a lot of the grappling and the wrestling and actually won the second round. And then I think, eventually, Shavkat kind of took over slowly and won the fight. But I was actually impressed with Gary's performance, coming in on short notice. And I think he did a pretty good job against someone as untethered as someone like Shavkat, who's supposed to be the next upcoming champion, the one that's going to go through Bilal for so many fans. So I really do give Ian Gary a lot of credit on short notice to come in, to one, take the fight, but two, put up a pretty good fight. So I think this one, I think Gary's doing us the favor by taking someone like Carlos. And I think people hate on Gary and want him to lose. I've always been a fan of his, especially he doesn't have to take on a 13 fighter, especially a guy like himself who's trying to climb back in and fighting a number one ranked, going to 13. I think this is all going to be about technical. And I think obviously Carlos is a more technical kickboxer and has the reach advantage. But I think this one is going to be where Gary uses his counter to kind of lean back onto the defense and really use that as his major advantage to keep Prates close in vicinity where he can't really get comfortable. And I do think Gary takes this one by points. My alternate, which is my third and final, is Prates finds a way to clip him and wins by a second round knockout. But I just feel that from what I've seen from Ian Gary, that he will get a title shot eventually one day. And I still think it's within this realm, and within this timeline, within this run. I think he beats Prates here, but I guarantee you that Gary and Prates will fight each other again.
Wow.
Definitely. I think this is one where one of these guys, depending on how this fight goes, will be motivated by this and will find each other again as either a champion versus, top tier guy or a number one contender fight, whatever the case may be. But these two guys will see each other again. I guarantee within 3 years' time, and we'll fight for either a belt or the next one will be the belt. So this is a great fight. This is like a prelim of what's to come between these two fighters. And for now, I think Ian Gary takes it. But with what I've seen from Carlos in his career so far, I think Carlos can easily push past Ian Gary in the future. But right now, I think this is Ian Gary's time to still climb the ranks and go for a belt. So give me Gary by points.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going Carlos Prates by decision. And I think the reasons for that is I do not think that he's going to be able to knock out Ian Gary because I do think Ian Gary is very crafty. Although I've been one to shit on him and pick against him, I think it's mainly because of his lazy exits, despite it working the majority of the times. That it bugs me. I feel like every one of the guys that he's fought in the last 5 fights should have been the guy to get to him, right? And maybe that's just me taking it personal, right? Like, I thought I had the read on this guy and I didn't, and now I can't see it for what it is. But let's be honest about seeing what this stage of Ian Gary's development career has been. Let's be honest of what it is. He's a neutralizing fighter. He's someone that's going to go out there and do whatever he needs to do to win on points. He's not going out there trying to decision you. Trying to knock you out. He's going out there trying to find a way to win the fight. And I think ultimately that's going to be what keeps him in trouble in this fight because this is being scored under MMA rules and not boxing or kickboxing rules. I think Carlos Prates is going to be able to catch him on the exit, and it's not going to have to be a knockout, but the reaction, right? What it brings to Ian Machado Gary when he gets hit from Prates is going to be visibly different than what Gary brings when he lands on Prates. I think obviously Carlos Prates has shown that he can get set up specifically by jab attacks. I think the most revealing fight to look back against for this matchup was actually his fight with Trevin Giles. I think he showed a lot that needed to be developed from that point, and I think he definitely has since, right? But I think he is susceptible to straight line attacks, and obviously that's where Ian Machado Gary gets his best work done. I think setting up the leg kicks too. He has some of the best setups for leg kicks in the UFC period. I think listen, I'm not saying I don't like his game. I'm not saying I don't like the way he fights, but he's a very negative fighter. He's trying to take the fight out of the fight so that he can land exactly what he needs to edge over the top. And I think in a fight like this is a dangerous place to be in because although your skills technically should put you in a position to be craftier and outpoint Prates, you're fighting someone that has shown that he has the death touch, right? That has shown that his power is on a different level. If he's going to be able to catch you, it's going to affect you in a very different way than what you're doing to him. Now, as far as the grappling aspect of it, I think it makes a lot of sense why you and a lot of people think that Ian Machado Gary's path to victory and what he's going to be looking to do is grappling. I think that Carlos Pratis's big loss against, now bear with me as I try to say this name because I need to look at it while I say it. Gajimurav Abdullayev in one championship. I think a big factor on him losing that fight and why he didn't really look good in those grappling exchanges was because they were fighting in a ring. I think he kind of got caught up a lot in those positions and couldn't base himself off the wall. I think everything we've seen of him in the UFC in grappling response situations, it hasn't been a lot, right? But I think he shows good instincts as far as attacking the takedown attempt, if that makes sense. So attacking the base of it, attacking your arms, bringing your hands back up in those clinch positions. So I think Pratis has good instincts in that way, but it's going to be reliant on the cage and putting himself in a position to defend using the cage. I think ultimately this fight is going to be very boring for times. And then in between there, every so now and then, Carlos Pratis is going to be able to put him into a position where he pressures him and lands a shot. And that is what's going to lead to the moment that's enough of him winning this fight. I think looking back at the Shavkov fight, I think it's impressive to see what he was able to accomplish against Shavkov because of how we look at Shavkov. I don't think it really is necessarily because of how he performed. I think we put Shavkat on such a pedestal that we take so much stock into what he was able to accomplish in that fight. Don't get me wrong. He gave Shavkat hell. Like, I think I agree. The reason why he wasn't able to fight for the title was because of what Ian Gary did to his legs. And I think that's very much so in play for him to do to Pratis here. I just think Pratis has enough firepower on his end to meet him at those exits in the way that the people that Machado Gary has beaten so far has not been able to catch him. I think Pratis has the speed and the craftiness to do that. And I just, once again, as far as being fans and fandom, right? I don't know how you didn't mention at all that how much you fuck with Pratis. Like, I think off of base level, all these fighting nerds guys, they're my inject this shit into my veins. Like, I'm locked in with the fighting nerds. I might even cop some merch. That's how much I fuck with these guys and what they're doing in the UFC. I think they're a really good camp. And even though we have yet to learn a lot about their fighters, I think what we've seen as far as their ability to capitalize on moments that they see, I think their vision across the board for all these fighters is impeccable. And once again, that's going to serve them well in this matchup. This fight's going to suck, but when it gets fun, it's going to be fun. So I'm going Carlos Pratis, but I could very well see it going the way you said. I just don't think you could be boring like that against someone like Pratis, based on everything we've seen of him so
Yeah,
far.
I guess, but I also feel like people said that same thing against when he fought Shavkat. That Shavkat, you know, isn't a boring fighter, and eventually Shavkat will be able to get to Gary. And that almost, you had.
But we all thought that he was going to be able to blow him out the water with the
Yes.
grappling, right? Like, that was the consensus idea. And because he didn't, that was mind blowing to us. But that's not in play in this fight. But
No,
continue. I'm sorry.
I think it's like that where anything Gary does is, I think people are underwhelmed with Gary's performance, but I think you have to learn that I think Gary's very smart with his camps. I think he knows exactly what he needs to. He's the opposite of Chandler. He's like the complete opposite of Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler's got no fight IQ, only cares about what the fans think, and him landing an overhand right and connecting. Like, that's all he keeps fighting for. While Gary don't give a fuck if the fans hate him or not, as long as he's pushing wins and gets his belt, then he can remind you what he said all along, which is everything Connor already said. But it was like that's just something that he's pushing for. But that's just something he's going to continue to push, and I think with him it's going to be about just it's just.
I'm sorry. You broke me.
But
Sorry,
it
that was
just
crazy.
that's what's going to be. He's going to do whatever it takes to just slowly piece it apart, piece the fighter apart, or take it to his fight where it's slow, it's boring, the fans are booing, but he's doing what he needs to do and what he's trained in the entire camp in order to win that round, in order to win against that certain fighter. And I think when he took the Shavkat fight, I think he took it as, you know what, it was, short notice, but let me do what I think is his weakness, and I think he did a really good job against Shavkat for a short notice fight. And I think Gary finds a way to, in his own head, to find a different type of motivation. Like I'll never understand the Neil Magny hate he had toward him. Like he found a way in his own mind to have hate towards Neil Magny. So it's like I think that he does the same thing where now he's talking shit with Protest talk shit back. Like he gets Gary gets you to fight like the way he wants you to fight, or gets you to feel a certain way to feel going into his fight. So I think Gary's pretty smart, to be completely honest with you. I think he does some boneheaded things at times out of the octagon, but I think this fight is just so clear for something like Gary, where if he can control the octagon and continue to push forward like he did not do against Shavkat, I think this fight could be really, really well for Gary to slowly win rounds. Where you'll hear the fucking commentators being like, "I'm not sure who won that fight," but in reality, you kind of go, "I think Gary snuck away with that round. I think Gary snuck away."
Mhm.
And I do think Prades will tee up and get him eventually, but I think it'll be a little too late, to be honest with you.
I think a big part about why this motherfucker frustrates me so much is he has all the tools to go out there and
Yes,
knock out Protest.
definitely.
Like he has
Absolutely.
all the tools to go out there and knock out Protest, but it's not happening. Like I promise you, there's one thing that will not happen on Saturday night. It's Ian Machado Gary winning by knockout. I assure you all of that. Show
I
up on
know.
fucking Tuesday. Like
I'm gonna be recording this shit, and if it happens, I'll be like, "Clip, put that shit on fucking TikTok."
clip this shit right now. Hey, I'm not guaranteeing a
Yeah.
Protest win, but I'm guaranteeing that motherfucker's
No.
not getting knocked out. But I think that's why it's so frustrating for me though. It's just like, what the fuck are we building towards here? And your idea of budget Connor, once again, because I love that you said that. That was amazing. Couldn't have said it better myself. But your idea of being budget Connor is pissing people off and getting under their skin so they can chase you around.
No.
And you can leg kick them.
No.
Like, shout out to the Neil Magny performance, because I'm so mad at you that you beat your kids that I'm gonna whip your legs
Yeah.
for 3 rounds. Like I hate everything about this stupid motherfucker. But hey, he might win this fight. You're right.
I like I said, I just think this is his fight to lose, to be honest with you, and it continues to prove what he's been trying to tell everyone all along, that he's a UFC guy, he's a company man, like Colby says. But I think it's just one of those where this fight is his to win now, but those two will fight again.
You heard the man. Book it. We got a rematch in the future. And just like that, our dynasty fighters for the week are as follows. Until the draft, we've got on Chris's team, shout out to the goons, we got Carlos Prates, Giga Chikadze, Michel Pereira, Randy Brown, Cameron Saaiman, and Chris Gutierrez, while Sean has Ian Machado Gary, Ming Yang Zhang, David Onama, Ikram Aliskerov, and Jaqueline Amorim. Every time I look at these fight cards, though, I'm like, man, we're good at this shit because we're picking the right people to end up at these positions. But it's your turn now, Sean, to pick the right person. You're on the clock. You get the choice.
I just love Damon.
Yeah, of course. I already know. I was
love
stalling
Damon.
already.
Like,
I don't know if you noticed.
I'm surprised that he was up there. So I was like, how do you not take him? Because even in a Walsh, he's going to give you a hell of a performance. Yeah.
You're taking Damon? Nice. Very respectable.
I don't count the Montel Jackson loss. I don't. Because it was 20 seconds into the fight. Anyone could get clipped. All right?
I agree. Anyone could get clipped. All right. Who am I picking here? Now I feel like Sean.
Yeah, take it.
I don't know what the fuck to do. Jimmy Flick sounds about right.
Jimmy
right?
Flick. You might as well go with someone like
the retirement bowl.
Schnell or some shit, just because it probably will be the last fight, and you can get a win and out.
Winning out. Yep, that's the goal. That's the goal with some of these picks. Yeah, the only fight that I imagine I hedge and then Wellmaker loses, bro. Oh man. That would suck, bro. Fuck it. Give me Malcolm Wellmaker. I hope the potential can be met.
So now you get a win and a loss.
Yeah, I get a win and a loss, just like that. Let me write it in, just so it's in the standings as well. And motherfucking Cameron Saaiman, because I cannot be bothered to sit through this fight and watch Cameron Saaiman get his ass beat and not have picked Malcolm Wellmaker here. Okay, so I am 1-1 for the week. My team is already you already fucking know. Okay, this guy just drafted the fucking Mr. Damone himself, the Blackshear, the sheep shearer. I went with Malcolm Wellmaker. Can't wait to see what the fuck happens here, because I don't know about you, Sean, but it only takes 1 week without the UFC to make me feel like, man, it's been so long. I couldn't wait for today, for Saturday. So can't wait to see what comes of this event. And you know that we'll be right here to talk to you about it before we move on to the next one. So thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we really appreciate you all. The next time you get depressed, the next time you get all sad, next time you're like, man, I don't know what to do. Just remember that you didn't change your walkout song from Return of the Mac and then proceed to get your ass beat for the next 3 fights like Anthony Smith did. We'll see you all next week.